We will now begin the regular press conference by Minister Hayashi. Minister Hayashi, the floor is yours. I'd like to make 2 points. At today's cabinet meeting, the Chief Cabinet Secretary announced that next year's G7 Foreign Ministers meeting will be held in Karuizawa-machi, Nagano Prefecture. I, for one, believe that Karuizawa is an appropriate venue for the G7 foreign ministers to openly and frankly discuss the most pressing issues of the international community in the midst of a beautiful natural environment as a town that has a track record of hosting many international conferences. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is committed to making every possible effort to ensure the smooth holding of the G7 Hiroshima Summit and to making preparations for the meeting. The Ministry will make every effort to ensure smooth holding of the G7 Summit and will make joint efforts with relevant organizations and local governments of the host city for the G7 meeting.
Another statement is that we now have the latest number of Japanese nationals working with the international organization. Let me announce the number. As of the end of 2021, the Japanese nationals working with international organizations under the umbrella of the United Nations, a record high 956, and which was an increase of 38 from 918 of the last year. Those in the executive position was 91, also a record high, an increase of 3 from 88 of the last year. There's a good progress toward the goal of achieving 1,000 by 2025 set by the Japanese government. MOFA is determined to help achieve the government goal and increase the number of Japanese officers and help them promote it through the efforts such as Japanese professional officers, seconding middle officers to be the candidates for the future executive positions, and holding online guidance seminars to the Japanese nationals to raise awareness. By doing so, we'd like to help them working and advancing in the organization. That is all. Thank you very much.
Questions, please. If you have a question, please raise your hand. And when you're called upon, please proceed to the nearest microphone and state your question, please. Please. Kyodo News, Maeda-san, please. Maeda from Kyodo News. The G7 ministerial meeting, security is what I'd like to ask about. It'll be held in Karuizawa, and there'll be friends and families who will be participating. How do you see the security situation? The relevant entities and with the local government of the venue, we would like to liaise and engage in preparation. Next question, please.
Mr. Abe of Yomiuri Shimbun. This is Abe of the Yomiuri. Again, in regard to G7 ministerial meeting, Foreign Minister, you yourself have visited Liverpool and also UK as well as Germany, and you've attended the Foreign Ministerial meeting. And based upon that, when you host the G7 Foreign Ministerial meeting in Karuizawa of Nagano Prefecture, what is your personal concept to organize this one? Well, G7 Foreign Ministerial meeting, the locations which raise your hands, there were several municipalities raise your hand and think about the venue as well as accommodation and all the needs in regard to the security and all these points were considered, and the government have now decided on Karuizawa. Particularly, Karuizawa town has a lot of track records of hosting international conferences, and particularly in the very rich nature, G7 foreign ministers can open their hearts and discuss the imminent challenges in international society, and we thought that the place is very appropriate.
GG Press, Tanaka-san, please. With regard to the foreign ministers' meeting, what will be the themes for discussion? What is your preference in terms of this? And what about the timing of the convening of this conference? With regard to the timing, we will do the necessary coordinating, and at an appropriate time, we'd like to make the decision and announce. with regard to the themes and items on the agenda, the imminent issues, urgent issues of the international community. This is a venue for discussing such things. So with regard to agenda items and themes, we would like to examine the matter going forward. Next question, please.
And Higuchi-san of Chugoku Shimbun, please. This is Higuchi of Chugoku Shimbun. Change of the topic. The other day, NPT review meeting was concluded the other day, and there was a third round of broken off of negotiations, and there were no consensus over 3 periods. And over 12 years since 2010, there were no consensus. And from the victims of atomic bomb victims as well as others, criticizing that perhaps NPT is not functioning properly. And the Prime Minister insists on giving focus on NPT going forward as well. However, in the international community as well as for the citizens, it seems that the Japanese government should change the course of terms of a prohibition of nuclear weapons, and perhaps Japan fails to bridge the differences between nuclear holding countries versus not. What is your opinion? Now, this time around, the review conference failed to reach a consensus, and that was because because of the Ukraine situation in Ukraine, Russia was the only country who opposed to this draft, and NPT structure itself was not considered as a problem, and therefore it is quite regrettable that meeting did not reach a consensus, adopting a consensus document. However, all the countries other than Russia did not oppose to the consensus document. Therefore, such a final outcome document was prepared in that way itself is quite significant. And in regard to the next NPT Review Conference to be held in 2026, the meeting was able to agree unanimously the process toward the next meeting. And upon our country's NPDI proposals, and there were some subcommittee to be agreed upon to be hosted before the next review meeting. And that is the that is expression of the will of the each countries to organize the NPT, where the nuclear countries and non-nuclear countries are both collaborate, and our country will collaborate realistically and practically, and we would like to proceed with the procedures, and we would like to build constructive relations with Russia as well.
Next question, please. Asari-san, please.
Thank you. Asari, Panoramic News and Army Japan. What is Japan's government position regarding the participation of people from Polisario movement in the TICAD meeting? Japan, we know that doesn't recognize that organization or the claim that it has a republic in Sahara, and they attend the meeting. So was it at the invitation of Japanese government? Thank you.
Western Sahara, in parentheses, was not invited to TICAD 8. TICAD has the theme of African development. It's an international conference on this theme. At the TICAD 8, regarding Africa development, we had a focused discussion. Next question, please.
Miki-san, please. This is Miki of Nikkei. Sri Lanka president said in its interview that there should be creditors meeting to be organized, and he requested Japan to take a lead in holding such discussion session. What is the position of Japan? Vis-a-vis Sri Lanka, we've been having a diverse range of communications, and with regard to the debt restructuring discussions, as your questions, there's no fact that we are preparing to organize that with Sri Lanka. Well, from Japanese point of view, we are carefully monitoring the grave economic situation in Sri Lanka and reflecting upon the humanitarian situation of the country. We are currently implementing the humanitarian aid to provide pharmaceuticals, products, and the food to the country. And we are hoping that Sri Lanka government, in coordination with IMF and Paris Club, that are trying to improve economic and financial situations while ensuring the transparency. And our country will carefully monitor the situation in Sri Lanka, and we will also discuss with either Sri Lanka as well as donor and other international organizations, and we will discuss on our end as well. Thank you.
Takahashi-san from Asahi Shimbun, please. Takahashi from Asahi Shimbun. On NPT, please. For 2 times in a row, the conference was broken off, and Prime Minister Kishida said that it is with chagrin that he faces this with regard to future attempts related to a nuclear-free world. Could I have your thoughts on this? At this conference, Prime Minister Kishida advocated in the general debate the Hiroshima Action Plan. And beginning with this, our thoughts and assertions were supported and evaluated highly by many countries, and much was included in the final outcome document draft. As mentioned earlier, in the end, because of the Ukraine issue, Russia alone opposed, and so the draft final outcome document was not adopted based on consensus. It is regrettable, but with the nuclear states and non-nuclear states have engaged in serious discussions, and a draft final outcome document was adopted, which no country other than Russia objected to in terms of a consensus-based adoption. And it was decided that it would be retained as a record of the conference, and that is significant. So the NPT regime itself was not questioned. Based on the outcome of this, it's important to maintain and strengthen the NPT. G7 Hiroshima Summit will be hosted by Japan, and through discussions there toward a world without nuclear weapons, we want to further add momentum of the international community toward this issue, and we want to be steadily proceeding with practical and realistic initiatives. So one last question, please.
NHK Morita. In regard to Ukraine, regarding reopening of the Japanese embassy there, the Ambassador Matsuda entered the country, and looking at all countries in G7, it seems that other than Japan, it seems that all the key countries have reopened the embassy. What is your progress of reopening the embassy? Thank you. As is discussed earlier, other country situation was just as you have mentioned, and in order to reopen the embassy in Ukraine, we are currently discussing at this point. That is all for today's press conference. Thank you very much.